should do. First of all, dedicate itself 101% to military self-sufficiency by appointing, as I described to you before, a munitions czar that had priority. His writ would be priority over the military.
Hold on, listen. You guys know this guy? You guys
Look,
know who,
there are two things any rational country right now
this is
should do. First of all, dedicate itself
big American trader
101% to military self-sufficiency by appointing, as I described to you before, a munitions czar that had priority. His writ would be priority over the military establishment and the finance ministry. And second of all, getting on with the task of eliminating, not defeating, but eliminating our enemies now, whether that's Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, or Iran, or the proxy forces in Syria, Iranian proxy forces in Syria.
Okay, this is the thing with this dude. First of all, we all know how delusional they are, right? But this guy takes the cake, okay? It's just this, he's so funny. It's just sometimes I can't help but, I don't know if I'm laughing at him or I'm just laughing so hard because it's so comical, the whole situation that I see it. It's just like this fat pumpkin talking like this. But yet, anyway, but like you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm gonna try to put more of this guy's videos up here. But listen, I mean, look at him. He's like, yeah, we just gotta go and destroy everything. Like they haven't been trying to for a year now almost. It's like, dude, where have you been? He's been repeating this kind of rhetoric, like complete delusional rhetoric. Like it's just like I was telling you guys, it's hilarious. I gotta go. Oh man, if I wasn't so lazy, like a compilation of all of his just, this is what we're gonna go do. We're gonna go get him. We're gonna go destroy Hezbollah. It'll only take us 2 days to go and destroy this section of Lebanon. It's just like he's playing a video game, and I don't understand why I don't get that this isn't the game anymore. Do you not? And here's the thing: everything to him is criminally. Is criminal. Everything to him is criminal. Everybody should go to jail. Everybody should be held liable by going either to jail, or a lot of times he's just advocating for pretty much capital punishment for, and we're talking about Israelis here. He's just like, the guy who, let that Hamas dude in, we should just kill him because that's criminal. Everything is criminal to this guy, let alone, he's the biggest traitor. I mean, look, he's a squatter basically, and he betrayed his own country. And I guess, well, we'll see how it plays out for him, because he is the craziest of the crazy. I mean, he's to the far right of Netanyahu. I mean, oh God, let's see what he has to say. I mean, Jesus, I haven't even seen this.
Iraq. And what happened this week? I mean, it's something that's sometimes hard for me to understand, but it happened. We in Israel, the military published 3 satellite photos of 2 ports in Yemen, controlled by the Houthis, not Hodeidah, but 2 other ones, and Sana'a International Airport, a real tourist hotspot, if you're a jihadi, and said, now, if you attack us again, if you do anything of that sort, these are the targets that will be hit.
See,
and I thought about this, and I wrote to several of my military friends who were active, and I said, first of all, if we had a military dedicated to victory, total victory over our enemies, those 3 facilities should have been hit immediately after our raid on Hodeidah.
See, that's another thing. His whole thing is the problem with Israel is they lack will, supposedly. Everything could be possible, and you should see how much disregard they have for how much help they're getting from America. I mean, it's just shameful, really. I mean, thinking about all the taxpayers that we're putting in. Everything is just a disregard for everybody's an anti-Semite, what you would expect. And everybody's just betraying them. And, the United Nations, which basically created them in the first place, is all of a sudden just an anti-Semitic, just everything is hilariously, like I've been saying, hilariously anti-Semitic to this guy. And the people around him, which I think, at least for comical purposes, you know, we should pay a little attention. But basically, let's not forget who. By the way, for the people who don't know, he is the guy who. Uh, the reason I call him a traitor is because he uh, gave secrets, nuclear secrets from the U.S. to Israel. So basically, he worked. He was I'm guessing some kind of engineer, some kind of, yeah, I don't know where the nuclear stuff are and what branch, but he was, I'm guessing, I don't know, is it army, whatever, I'm guessing he was in the engineer corps, and he took some of the documents and he given to Israel, but he did go to jail. I think maybe, for a pretty good time, I think. But then they traded him, and there was a whole thing where uh, they, took him back with, flowers, and it was just like this whole thing and ceremony where they brought him back, and, really he's just an American traitor. But besides that, I mean, uh, just this whole we could do it if we wanted to. It's just hilarious to me because, I mean, they've been seeing how they've been failing after all of this. Just, we're this and we're that, even though they need all this help from America, even though all they say is it's just because of America that we're not winning. Like, you will see, hopefully, after I, post more of these videos, the one thing that is connecting all these um, videos about, why they're losing pretty much is somebody's holding them back. It's either criminally naive Israelis, according to him, criminally as in like they need to be, taken off the playing field somehow. Um, uh, or it's because of the Americans. It's either will of weak Israelis or the anti-Semitic Americans, or whatever the reason, trying to prevent them, or some other anti-Semitic reason in the world, which is just anyway. But obviously, this is just funny because this is why you're losing. I mean, to you, Jonathan, Jonathan, you should realize that the reason you're losing, even though you don't think you're losing, but that's even says even worse of you. You know what I mean? Like, the reason that you can't look at where you are, compared to 9 months ago. I have been watching you guys for so long, and look at how, do you not see the pattern here? And the reason is because you just don't understand your quote unquote who you assume is your enemy. So if you're not going to understand them and you're just going to think that they're some dehumanized, they're not even human, pretty much, which I have seen this channel. And let me tell you, people, this channel is such a good example of when they said that they look at Arabs as not human. I had no idea until I've been watching this channel. And I realized this is not a joke, and they're talking like this openly, and we'll see. We'll see examples of this. And anyway, so I'm just gonna shut up and let me see what he has to say, because when the pumpkin talks, you listen, right?
And it should have been the next ones, those two ports in the Sana International Airport, should have been followed up by strikes the very next day.
I mean, okay. All right. I'm sorry. It's just like the other day he was talking about how they should just level this and that in Lebanon. It's like, dude, do you realize that Lebanon has had their airports leveled already? That there is no infrastructure left in Lebanon to be really taken away. So there's nothing that you can do to make them stop. Yet you have not been touched yet. What if Ben Gurion Airport? It's like they're always looking at it just up to the point where they're gonna get hit. It's like they're not considering that part. It's like, yeah, we're gonna go and level the Beirut airport. Yeah, I get that, but what's gonna happen after there's no refugee airport? There's gonna be no more Ben Gurion Airport. How are you? But there's no talking about that. I just don't understand. I mean, supposedly people on the right are supposed to be realist. I mean, that's where I feel I would be on, right? I mean, I consider myself, I guess, on the right. I mean, I don't even like these divisions. I mean, left, right, it's such a mix of, anyway. But But he's just so delusional. This is just hilarious. I mean, I guess each side has their delusional people, but you never thought, this guy's supposedly smart, right? And oh my God, he's so full of himself too. That's just the yeah, it's just interesting. So yeah.
During working hours, the Iranian embassy, the Revolutionary Guard headquarters, and the Houthi Ministry of Defense in Sana'a, leading up to the final and decisive strike, which would be a strike on the large demonstration in Sana'a. By large, I mean 400,000 to 500,000 of these screaming monsters, these Houthis, militia and what goes for their army. And that would put paid to the Houthi problem. And at that point, the internationally recognized
just one thing
government of Yemen in the south would come up north and basically mop up
the Houthi problem. Which is where I'm waiting for this genius.
And I got a letter or an email from a very dear friend of mine who is in
planning. He's always in the middle of things.
Distance planning. And he said, "Are you out of your mind? Why are you wasting your time writing about things like this that will never happen?" And I had to be careful. And I wrote back to him and said, "If it doesn't happen, it's because of people like you that refuse to commit yourself to total victory over our enemies."
See.
And he wrote back and said, "My friend, it's complicated."
No, it's not complicated. Yeah,
complicated.
He hates complicated
because it's an excuse for cowardice.
He says complicated is an excuse for cowardice. All right, buddy. See, this is exactly why you're going nowhere, and this is my, like, I'm trying to help you at this point. Anyway, but hold on. We're gonna continue this. Let me just keep this undergoing, and I'm gonna go see what the noise and the ruckus is with the dog.
And indecision. So, given who is going to be the major players, probably in a possible Harris administration, and the fact that we're telegraphing to our enemies the fact that these are the targets we're going to hit, and the fact that we have not dedicated ourselves to military self-sufficiency or the total annihilation of our enemies before a hostile administration run by Kamala Harris takes office, God forbid, it really raised in my mind the question of our government. What are we dealing with, honestly? When I talk to my friends, they tell me, "Look, we're a honored member of the Democratic Community of Nations." And I said, "Wait a second. We may be a democracy in comparison to our regional neighbors, but under no circumstances do we qualify as a democracy in the strict meaning of the word. We are, and you and I have talked about this, we are unfortunately what's called a juristocracy. It's ruled by the courts, whose writ is carried out by the legal profession and the various legal attaches legal advisors, not attaches, legal advisors in all the ministries, the attorney general, the state attorney, and all of the what I call legal commissars in the army.
In other words, instead of rule of law, it's rule of lawyers.
Perfect. Exactly. They have the control of the government. Anybody that feels that by voting in an election, the resulting Knesset will have any power should see a psychiatrist, because they're not seeing reality for what it is.
Because there's
already been it should be pointed out, what you're saying, of course, is entirely true, and this is the result of the illegal revolution instigated and implemented by our homegrown enemy, Aaron Barak, former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He basically subverted the Israeli system of governance and turned it into the aristocracy that you described. But this is by no means, it should be pointed out, an Israeli phenomenon. Precisely the same process took place in Britain, for example, beginning in 1997, when Tony Blair, another very righteous man, came to power. New Labour. That's the word "new," of course, changed everything. But in fact, it did change a great deal, in actual fact, because he brought about a revolution in British politics. According to the British system of government, which goes back many centuries, the Parliament was sovereign and was the highest authority
source of authority in the country.
Source of authority in the country. In many ways, even above and beyond the monarch. He introduced. One of the things he did was to introduce the European Convention of Universal Human Rights and made it part of the British legal system. He invented something that had never existed in the UK, namely a Supreme Court. And by so doing, he essentially eviscerated and emasculated the British Parliament and handed power over to the jurists, the lawyers, the legal advisors, and the Quango committees that that just invent rules and regulations and they're not in any way responsible to anybody. They are not required to explain themselves or their decisions. They are not elected.
At all.
This was a deliberate policy on the part of Anthony Blair.
And this was in defense of multiculturalism, which led inevitably to open borders. And we see now on the streets of England exactly where that led. So
basically, England is disintegrating before our eyes.
Correct.
Either there will be a huge uprising by the still, but not for long, white majority.
Correct.
Or it's all over for the British people.
Well, in the midst of a war here, you have this ongoing assault on our soldiers' dignity and innocence by Major General Yerushalmi, who's the judge advocate.
They like to bitch about the immigration problem, but they're not showing that what's the reason for all this immigration. Obviously, it's all these wars that they're, pushing themselves. It's just, I don't know how blind are you people, Really? Like, you don't see that the wars that we have Netanyahu on TV pushing, like, we got to go into Iraq, it's going to make everything better, and then everything goes to shit. And then the same thing about, this is going to be a, new world with the world of terror. It's going to be a whole new, nothing's going to be the same again. And then, like, really, are we just going to not look at all this and see that they've been pushing, Israel has been pushing the U.S.? Obviously, they didn't mind getting pickled into it with the the weapon companies, but I mean, we all know why. It's like, the two birds with one stone, and one of the birds was helping Israel, and going into Iraq, all this devastation through the wars in the past 20 years and before that anyway. I mean, think about it. I mean, not even the wars. I mean, what happened in Libya and the quote unquote Arab Spring. All this is what is causing all these people to migrate into Europe. And again, if you think this is not coordinated and kind of they want this to be, then you need to, I have a bunch of stuff I could sell you for very overpriced and things you probably couldn't even own. So, I mean, this is just, I don't know, it's not even funny at this point when you think about how much we're losing. And this is again for people like that, what is it, it was the What If Alt History or whatever, and Rudyard, and why would you not see that it's these wars and who's pushing these wars? You're just not going to look past that level of how the American system can be manipulated by money and influence and to do things like this, which are not in favor or helpful to the American people or America in general, and who has been the, interests and money that has been pushing these recent things. Do you really not want to see it, or do you not? These are the things I'm talking about in terms of, the problem we have with the right these days. But yeah, let me just.
General of the Army. She's now opened up investigations of soldiers down in Hebron. Why? Because certain Arabs complained that on October 7th, these soldiers were acting aggressively. I don't know what that means. They were doing their job. But here you have the same kind of thing.
Can you think of any possible reason for any
I have no,
behavior?
I have no
assuming there was such behavior, in fact, in evidence.
I have no.
What happened on October 7th?
No, I don't know why soldiers would be acting aggressively in a Muslim Brotherhood hotbed, which Hebron is.
Why they might be jittery or suspicious.
Trigger happy, maybe.
Yes.
They may use bad words, bad language.
They may have hurt someone. They may have hurt someone's feelings.
God, the microaggression. This is horrible. This can't be tolerated. And who is allowing this to happen? I got to go back to it. It's Bibi Netanyahu, and of course Gallant. I'm not going to give Bibi a waiver on this. I'm just not. He knows. I know for a fact he knows exactly what's going on, and he has done nothing to stop this perversion of justice against our our soldiers,
He,
our
he,
sacred
he,
soldiers.
he himself is a perversion.
No
Alright,
argument.
see,
But
he's
still, I mean,
It's true. It's true. He's much less
these guys are
pernicious
so
than
to the right of
many of
me,
his
like
rivals.
DB is such
True,
a leftist.
but
He's
that
like,
himself is a perversion of what a Jewish leader must be.
100%. In his case, it's not ideological; it's very personal. You know,
I
instead
don't
of
know, like this
imposing
is
an
called,
ideology,
he wants the
a foreign
what was
ideology
it say,
on
the
Israel,
monarch or
he's
whatever
imposing his ego
monarchy.
and
Yep.
his need for
He
political
requires a
survival on the
constitutional
country.
monarchy.
So
And this is
when you
I've seen
kind of
this
roll
from
all of this together,
anyway,
what it
I'm
means
gonna
is
let it talk and then
we
I'll
have a
talk
really
after.
sick political establishment in this country. When you think about it, and I had this conversation today with a very dear friend of mine, Israel Rosenberg,
I gotta get more
over
people to
a
we gotta
working
get more
breakfast.
people to interact with this
We
so we
both
can actually
kind of realized that democratia,
get you guys'
democracy,
opinions on this
is a foreign
whole
concept,
thing,
political concept
including
in
this
Israel. It's a Greek
specific guy.
concept. It's a Hellenist concept that has no justification under Torah at all. And it was a political system that was literally imposed on the nascent state of Israel by
Sorry, I'm gonna
Ben Gurion and his
put it back.
left
Just
democracy. Is a dear friend of mine, Israel Rosenberg, over a working breakfast. We both kind of realized that democratia, democracy, is a foreign concept, political concept in Israel. It's a Greek concept. It's a Hellenist concept
yes, of course.
that has no justification under Torah at all. And it was a political system that was literally imposed on the nascent state of Israel by Ben Gurion and his left.
I mean, look, how many times have we heard, "Oh, Islam's so nasty because it can't be democratized. Democracy doesn't work." This guy, I mean, look, you can interpret anything the way you want. I mean, that's what this shows me. But oh God, I mean, this is so ridiculous. But you can see how he's trying to push for this constitutional monarchy, and this is the problem we have with they're straight. It's just pretty much just calling for fascism now, right? And I guess monarchy in a way is a nice little way of saying fascism these days, because I've heard people in the Iranian diaspora, the people who are they think of themselves as the opposition. They're more like the clown posse. They're these monarchists. They're just really fascists. With this kind of monarchist face to them, because when you look at what they're saying, first of all, most of them are just completely uneducated about any kind of history. I mean, even the boy king, the boy who wanted to be king, really, the quote unquote prince. I mean, look, one of the best examples I have is, I don't know who it was who said that every Iranian boy wants to be king or something like that. And in a way it's true, and how that plays out is, Iranian boys a lot, they always love their history, and they like to, people who specifically look into the king history and, relate to that kind of aspect of the history, make sure they look into the history of the early Achaemenid Persian. I mean, that's like the beginning, that's like the main, that's like the you know that's the image, that's the one that you first get introduced to, and really what most people get stuck on, really. But and if you and you should know some of the basic stuff, like, for example, what was the story that what is the dynamic between Cyrus the Great and the Jews in Babylon, and going back in the temple? What is this? And most people who like history, and that is again a lot of Iranian people, they would know this. And especially if you're king, this would be your one thing. If it's like if you're let's say, I don't know, you're a musician and you're just like the one musician, or supposedly the one main musician, you're going to look into the history of your country, and you're going to look at other certain musicians throughout the history, right? Like, that's how you're going to look back and say, how did that go? You're telling me that this guy didn't look back at the Achaemenid period, between the dynamics between the Cyrus and the Jews coming back from Babylon, so he doesn't really understand, like, what Purim is? You're telling me that, like, this is really the thing. Like, he was confused. He didn't even know what the story of Cyrus, saving the Jews, or freeing the Jews from Babylon and sending them back to Jerusalem, helping build the temple, is a whole other story than the Purim story, which is taking place during Xerxes' time. If you don't know this, then you don't know anything about any kind of. I don't know if I'm pushing this forward in the right way. If people understand, I mean, it's kind of like saying, if you're really into American history, and you're into you're into politics, and then all of a sudden you really don't know what, for example, let me think of a good, like you don't understand how the New Deal was a progressive thing and how that worked. Like, you really don't know anything about history or politics or any of that. So apparently you really don't care enough to educate yourself on that kind of stuff. And it's not like he's busy. He's not doing anything. His whole thing, they asked him, what do you do? He's like, oh, my occupation is resistance. What the fuck does that mean, man? Your occupation? Yeah, like that one bitch with the crazy hair. Oh my God, she's got like this yellow flower always on her. Her head looks like a fucking like a something you wash dishes with. Anyway, like a frizzy, like anyway, like what does she do? Nothing. You see pictures of her. She's always close to power. She's always like hanging out with presidents of Iran, and then they kick her out of there, and then she's hanging out with powerful people here, and then all of a sudden she lives in a nice, beautiful New York penthouse. And again, what does she do? She's resisting. What does that even mean? You're getting paid to get on TV and talk shit about things that really like in this whole thing that we're dealing with right now with Gaza and everything. Like let's just like be real here. Like, forget Gaza. If you don't even care about Gaza, if you're one of these people who's in Europe and you're worried about the migrant thing, and you're not even you're too thick to realize that these things are connected. Why just why you got to realize these people are getting paid, okay? Masia Ali Najad is the one. I just didn't want to say her name, but I guess I might even put her picture up here. This bitch, she is living in a very nice, apartment and stuff, and people are like, oh, she's doing what? She's helping what? Helping the women talk about how they need freedom in this day and age with Gaza going on. And like I said, just forget about Gaza. If you're one of these people, you're worried about. There's people in Europe, like literally worried about their complete culture. This is white people in Europe worrying justifiably about their culture getting wiped out. And you're saying, oh, I want to be in Iran, and our biggest problem is I need to not wear my head scarf, legally not wear it. Even though when you go in Iran right now, just go on YouTube, just click on Tehran, any city. It's not like it's really like, when I was younger, it was much different, much more strict. Right now, it's nothing, okay? And yeah, it's like one of those things where it's in the law, but it's really not enforced anymore. And I'm telling you, people who are probably very, you don't follow around in politics. And, I was the same way when I first went in there. You just, first you believe what you hear, but then like everything else, you look deeper into it. Most of the shit that they've been talking about with this Masa Amini thing. I mean, look, you don't think that the fact that she had a huge history of since childhood of brain damage and brain surgery a thing, and the fact that she would pass out and this would be a thing that was at risk of like death risks earlier in her life, and all of a sudden, there's video of her, nothing has happened, she's not even holding her hand to her head because of apparently they hit her or some shit like that. Lies, obviously. It's all on video. She's just standing there, all stressed out. Obviously, it's in like a police station. I mean, I've been to these things. It's not a fun time. And then she just passes out because it's obviously stressed, and she's got these back, problems from back in her childhood days. There's documentation. The doctor's there. There's written. Even the dad first came out, but then he went back because he was worried about the backlash. These kinds of things are just being pushed around, and then so her death was actually, like, what I'm trying to say is her death was not related. I'm not saying it was a good thing that they put her in some van or took her to the police station for some, bullshit hijab reason. Obviously, that's not what I'm trying to say. If you're focused on that, then you're either, you're trying to miss the point. The point is, that's not why she died. It was not because of physical harm that she was put into. It was more of an emotional thing that had to do with her, medical history. But none of that was pushed forward. I was there while this was happening, and I first believed it because it made sense. But then when the more you look at it and the more you looked into it, you realize that this is all bullshit because the videos come out, but then nobody, the media doesn't change. It keeps the bullshit narrative going, and it reminds me of the beheaded babies or whatever. It's like, did you guys why do I have to remind the news guys that, hey, everybody else is talking about that it was this is all a lie? Why are you still saying it? I mean, I thought you're the one trying to tell me what the news is. Why do I have to keep going and reminding news sites in their comment section, for example, hey, I thought this has been debunked, and it has been. It's not that I think, I'm trying to be nice here. This is ridiculous, obviously. And so these people like that, and you can't trust anything that's coming out of these, like, in terms of, look at the young people in Iran getting mowed down by the security or whatever. It's totally not like that. It's like, listen, you turn on any kind of non-American news, and all they say is, look at America, it's all racist, and they're beating up black people, and it's just like this very bastardized version of any kind of reality that's going on, just to push a narrative, really, and it's just very obvious, really. And so I'm gonna continue this and see what this genius pumpkin has to say.
Wing ideologues in Mapai. And we can't say, even under the broadest of definitions, that what we experience now has any resemblance to what even the Greeks considered democracy or demokratia.
Oh yeah, well, okay. This is interesting. Well, here he's just kind of separating himself from the Western tradition, really, like the whole Greek democracy and such. Now I'm even gonna go into my Jesus. Excuse me, everybody. I'm gonna play this. Oh, you know what? No. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, the amount of hatred and just the amount of hate they have, it seems, for this Western culture, that all of a sudden it's like, are you a part of it or do you hate it? It's like, even though we're the only democracy, even though we hate democracy, it's not part of anything that we are, but we are the only democracy in the Middle East. Well, which one is it? Are we supposed to be on your side because you're the only democracy? But then here you are completely going against everything democratic. And, again, let's just ignore the fact that democracy is just a way for people to, cast blame on somebody else when there's things going wrong, right? In the government. It's just like, let's try to vote somebody else in. Maybe that'll solve something, who's to blame? I don't know. It's this seat. It's not anybody. It's just this whoever gets voted in next is going to have to deal with this issue, and he's going to move out, and then the next guy comes, and no one's there to really blame for anything, and no one's going to be held accountable. So, I mean, we're not even talking about that aspect of democracy. Here we go again, getting me on a rant, but I mean, they have a disdain for this Christian culture, and you see this so many times. It's like he's telling everybody, he's like, in this other video, he's like, we don't have to follow these Christian rules of war, basically respecting, prisoners. And so these people who think about this as, Judaic Christian, what do they call it? Judeo-Christian values. This is just such a lie, really, and just used to manipulate.
Yeah, as it's pronounced here. We don't have that.
Or even what the British used to consider a parliament.
Or even what the British considered. Correct.
For example, referencing the UK once again for a moment. In the UK, you have always had the first past the post system, and you have a constituency system of elections, so that the people of a certain area elect a representative to the parliament.
Who would be accountable?
And they would be accountable to those voters of their district. Which also means that in certain constituencies, the opposition to Ben Gurion, to the Mapai party, may have actually won a few representatives in the Knesset,
Correct.
in the parliament. That is exactly why people like Ben Gurion insisted that they diverge from the British model on which they based many things that they did, of a constituency electoral system, and based the Israeli system entirely on representative.
It's a party representation. It's a
Well, I don't want to be
national
a party
party.
pooper, guys, but I have to pause this for now. We'll come back again soon, hopefully. But let me know what you guys think about this guy, and we're gonna try to go deeper into him. But if you want me to go deeper into his history, maybe let me know. Anyway, bye for now.